Today we are working on slope-intercept form, and this lesson will be broken up into several parts. So we are going to go through the features of this equation, which is y equals mx plus b. And so it is really important that we know what each portion or each piece of the equation is referring to. So when we say the y, we're talking about the y value from an ordered pair. The m is our slope, the x is our x value from an ordered pair, and our b is what we call our y-intercept. So we are working for, we're looking to find certain pieces given a graph, and then we are able to write the equation. So with this graph here, we are looking for the slope and we are looking for the y-intercept. And so when we are looking for the y-intercept, we are looking for the point where the line crosses the y-axis. So that's the first thing that when we're given a line that we should really identify is what is our y-intercept? Where does it cross the y-axis? Well, our y-intercept in this case, it crosses at -4. And so then we need to find our slope. So remembering back to that lesson where we need to find an exact point that we can identify from an ordered pair. So there are some points on our graph. And so from our point on the left, we can go up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2. So that means our slope is a slope of 1/2. So when we are writing our equation, we are going to leave it as y equals and then leave our x value there, because what that means is that we can plug in any x, y value that is on this line and this equation will work. So all we are going to do is then plug in our slope and our y-intercept. So we would have, our equation would be y equals, our slope is 1/2, and our y-intercept is -4, so we would have y equals 1/2 x minus 4. And that would be our equation. That's what we're looking for. So on the next one, let's find where our line crosses the y-axis. So it crosses the y-axis here at -2. And then we are looking for our slope. So it looks like our line crosses an xy value right here. And I don't see any others. So starting with our point on the left, we're going down 1, 2, 3, 4, and we are going over 1. So that would be a slope of -4 over 1, or we could just write that as a slope of -4. So when we write our equation, this would be y equals, our slope was -4, so -4x, and our y-intercept was -2 or -2. So that would be our equation. So looking at two more. So our y-intercept in this case is right here at +1. And looking for our slope, so there's a point there and there's another point here. So starting with a point on the left, we would go up 1, 2, 3 over 2, up 1, 2, 3, and over 2. So our slope would be a +3/2. So when we write our equation, this would be y equals 3/2 x, and our y-intercept is a +1. So y equals 3/2 x plus 1. All right, looking at the next one. So our y-intercept looks like we barely made it on the graph here. So our y-intercept is at positive 5. And our slope, so looking for any points that cross exactly, looks like we have quite a few. So starting with a point on the left, so we are going down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1. So that would be a slope of negative 1 over 1. Or we could just say that that's a slope of negative 1. So when we write this as an equation, we could write this as y equals negative 1x, and our y-intercept is positive 5. Or we don't necessarily need the 1 there. We could just say y equals negative x plus 5. And that implies that there's a negative 1 there. Either way would work, and you should also be comfortable seeing it both ways because depending on how equations are written, we need to recognize that that means the same thing. So what I want you to do now is to pause the video, and then there are 6 more on the back side of your notes worksheet for you to do on your own. So once you have completed those 6 equations and identified the slope and the y-intercept, then click play on the video and I will go through those answers with you. Okay, so we are going to go through the answers on the last 6 problems. So our slope on this one was a slope of 2 and a y-intercept of 5. So y-intercept here, we can see that we have a positive slope of 2. So our equation is y equals 2x plus 5. On the next one, our y-intercept is negative 2. Can see that we have a slope, we're going up a slope of 1, or 1 over 1, a y-intercept of negative 2 as we already said. So y equals 1x minus 2, or if you wrote that as y equals x minus 2. Next one, our y-intercept is at positive 2. And looks like there's a point here and a point there. So our slope is negative 1/5. So our equation, y equals negative 1/5 x plus 2. Our y-intercept on this one is at negative 2. And looking for another point, it looks like there's another point, and there's another point, so we're going down 3, so a slope of negative 3 over 1, so negative 3, or if you like to write that as a ratio, so negative 3 over 1. So y equals negative 3x minus 2. Last two, our y-intercept here is at negative 4 with a slope of, looks like there's another point there, so 1/3. So our equation is y equals 1/3 x minus 4. And lastly, our y-intercept at positive 2 and a slope of, looks like there's a point there and perhaps a point here. So our slope is negative 3 going down 3 over 4. So a slope of negative 3/4. So y equals negative 3/4 x plus 2. Hopefully you did well on those examples, and now you are ready for your assignment.